Aquarius, thank you so much for checking out the channel. We are officially 4 months old. That's crazy. That's insane. I never thought this would happen. Please remember to subscribe, to comment, and to like this video, as well as follow me on Facebook and Instagram at claire.voyant.queen and Twitter at _Claire_voyant. I would greatly appreciate it. Please remember that I read energy in and around you. This could apply to you, yes, but this also could apply to your partner. This could apply to anyone. Take what resonates and leave what does not. Please also check out your other placements, such as your sun, your moon, your rising, as well as your Venus for more messages and more content. But thank you so much for watching. Hi Aquarius, welcome to your November 2020 love and relationship reading. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. Let's jump right in. Tell me about Aquarius. Tell me about Aquarius. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius for November of 2020. Aquarius for November of 2020. Aquarius for November of 2020. Okay, a couple more shuffles. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius for November. Ooh, I don't want to take all of those. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius for November. Aquarius for November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius for November of 2020. We have new love. A new person has stirred your romantic feelings. We have, it is safe for you to love. Open your heart to give and receive the highest energy of all. And we have finances and career. Financial issues are a factor in your love life right now. Interesting. Okay. So obviously we do have a new person on the horizon. New love, Aquarius. How exciting is that? It feels like you might be a little bit guarded towards this new person. It is safe for you to love. Open your heart to receive, to give and receive the highest energy of all. So it feels like there's someone new coming in. It feels like you might be blocked to them. And we do have finances and career. Financial issues are a factor in your love life right now. This might have something to do with your job or with your money situation or something of that nature. Let's pull some animal spirit cards. We'll kind of clarify what's on the board and we will go from there. Ooh, this already flew out, the otter. So I'm going to take the otter. Let's see. Beautiful energy. Tell me about Aquarius. Tell me about Aquarius. 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 For November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius. Ooh, gosh, these cards really want to fly out. You got some talking to do. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Okay. I'm going to call this done. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. The moth also wanted to come out. I'm not going to take that other card. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Okay. Aquarius, you are the oyster. Your partner is the stingray. In your emotional connection, we have the black egg. And then in your physical connection, we have the starfish. Beautiful. Okay. Before we jump into the book, because I do like to read the descriptions from the book, because I like you to have all of the information that you can have. We have a lot of water elements here, right? We have the stingray, we have the starfish, we have the oyster, we have the otter, right? All of these are water elements, right? So if we pull tarot, we might see a lot of cups come into play. But a lot of this connection has to do with feelings, right? How we feel, how we express those feelings. Let's start off with the oyster. Let's see here. Okay, the oyster. Aquarius, you are the oyster. Patient, secret keeper, hiding inner treasures. The focus and determination of the oyster is unmatched. Anything an oyster personality puts their mind to, they achieve with grace and charm. The only problem is, oyster types often take their inner gifts for granted. They become shy and doubtful, and this can lead to withdrawing or protecting their deepest desires in life's work. When the oyster card appears, it's important to reveal your inner treasures. What is it you've been hesitant to share? The world is waiting to see. So this is really interesting with this finances and career card that came out, and kind of saying financial issues are a factor in your love life right now. And when it says the focus and determination of the oyster is unmatched, anything an oyster personality puts their mind to, they can achieve with grace and charm. This kind of makes me feel like you are heavily concentrated on school, you're heavily concentrated on work, you're heavily concentrated on a project, you're concentrating on your financial situation. It feels like you have like your nose to the grindstone. And you're really, really focused and really, really determined, right? And because you're really, really focused and determined, it's almost essentially, it's like it's shaped you and shaped how people view you, right? In a really positive and beautiful light. I almost feel like because you're so productive, people are noticing that you're productive, and it's like almost attracting them inward, right? Attracting them to you is what it feels like. What's also interesting is that I have, it is safe for you to love, open your heart to give and receive the highest energy of all. And we have the oyster card here, right, which is the little pearl inside. And because there's a shell, and the oyster card really talks about essentially exposing yourself, right? Not in like a sexual way, but more so like, taking off the shell, taking off like the defenses, right? It is safe for you to love. So it's really about letting people in. So it does feel like there is some sort of new love connection here. Feels like you might not be open to it. Feels like you might have drawn this person in because you've been working very, very hard and working very diligently. But it feels like you're a little bit defensive when it comes to this newer connection. Let's pull up the stingray. Let's see here. So the stingray is your partner. Okay, the stingray. Developing confidence, sense of self, or spine. The stingray card represents a pivotal point in personal growth. The moment has come when the stingray must decide between the old, easy, comfortable, and familiar, and the new, challenging, uncomfortable, and unfamiliar. Pressure from family and friends makes the decision even more complicated. No matter what choice is made now, it's inevitable that this dilemma will surface again and again as the force of Dharma growing within the stingray is too strong to ignore. Right? So it's all about, again, developing confidence, sense of self, or spine. These like rainbow colors here, kind of indicate like the chakras and indicate like our chakras. So it could be about kind of coming into alignment with themselves, coming into alignment with this relationship. Could be an indicator that you're almost coming into alignment with yourself too. It feels like there's this kind of interesting dilemma here between these two cards, where one of them is like almost like developing the confidence, right? The stingray. And one is almost like lowering the defenses. It almost feels like they're very similar acts, but also like opposites in a sense, where it's like you have the confidence and it feels like you're almost like putting up a wall and putting up a defense to keep people out. It feels like this person like needs to build the confidence, and it feels like they need to come towards you. It almost feels like you're almost like you're opposing each other. There's some sort of like, oh, that's interesting. I just heard opposites attract. So if this is a new love interest or a new person, they could be incredibly different from you, like incredibly different in like some way, shape, or form. But I am kind of like getting the impression that it almost feels like there's growth from one person and there's growth from another person, but that growth involves, again, lowering your defenses. So that's kind of like interesting. It does feel kind of like an opposites attract kind of thing. Let's go to the black egg and the emotional connection. This is really beautiful. This is a spirit card, right? Meaning that there's only 7 spirit cards in the deck, and they represent each a different chakra. And notice again how in the stingray we had chakras, right? So this could be involving chakras for either you or your partner, especially the 5th chakra, your throat chakra. The black egg, this is your emotional connection, right? Speaking from an authentic voice, the truth. The black egg contains one of life's essential treasures, the truth. Inside of it resides no confusion, excuses, small talk, noise, or lies, even white ones. This living and breathing vessel harbors only that which rings true. When this essence is in balance, we speak slowly and clearly. We are drawn to activities like writing, reading, teaching, singing, or perhaps public speaking. Sounds draw us in. Books draw us in. The concept of truth itself draws us in. We start asking questions like, what do I know to be true about myself? And what is true about the world? When the energy of the black egg is not yet accessed, we speak from an unsure place. We say things others want to hear, gossip, or repeat stories to justify subpar behavior. We might even try to convince ourselves that we have no inner truth at all. The energy of the black egg hovers and waits for us to reconnect. It is, let's see. It is available at every moment in every situation. It's the epicenter of truth, the birthplace of our voice. How beautiful is that? So there's a lot about communication, right? A lot about speaking. And because this is in your emotional connection, a lot of that communication and a lot of that speaking is essentially about an emotional connection in this relationship, whether it's been expressed or whether it needs to be expressed. This kind of feels like it's not being expressed because it feels like one person is essentially closed off, and it feels like another person is working on the confidence to actually speak on behalf of it. So it feels like there needs to be communication here when it comes to this new love connection that's kind of blossoming. This is really beautiful. It's really beautiful. It feels very fragile and it feels very new, but fragile in like a good way. Fragile in like a delicate way. Fragile in like, I just heard patient too. Be patient. Like it feels like it's a really beautiful young connection that's going to take some time to grow. But I'm really loving, it's almost like gentle energy. It feels really nice. And then in your physical connection, we have the starfish, right? Going back to the starfish. Let's see. I know it's in here somewhere. Here it is. Starfish, your physical connection. Beautiful, alluring, superficial, or shallow. The starfish is a natural and exquisite beauty, mesmerizing to all. Being around someone with starfish energy is a thrill, like you've been put under a spell of divinity itself. The problem is these creatures have been reliant on how they look and what other people think of them for so long that they may have forgotten their deeper callings. When this card appears, it's important to be asked, am I being swayed by outward appearances? What dreams have I put aside to please others? This card definitely feels like you are very physically attracted to them. They are very physically attracted to you. You're very physically attracted to each other. But it does feel like there's some sort of level of physical attraction here. And it could be that essentially the spark, I want to say like the spark that like got them to notice you was how passionate and how driven you were when it came to your school or your work or your project or something of that nature. It just feels like you're a little bit closed off to this newer love connection, and they're kind of almost like working up the courage to talk to you. I feel like they're working up the courage. It almost feels like, that delicateness, that like gentleness that I was kind of referencing earlier feels like almost like a connection in like middle school when like you're about to ask someone out on a date for the first time. It kind of feels like that same like almost like really, really nervous energy, but it's like really cute and really charming is what it feels like. Let's dive into these two cards that wanted to appear earlier, and then we will tackle some tarot. Let's see. Like, look at this beautiful, beautiful otter energy. I love to see this. Otter, unobstructed joy, playfulness, contentment. Perhaps the most joyful creature within the animal spirit deck, the otter represents absolute bliss. Otter energy is the playfulness of a child, available to us at any age. They have the giddiness and reverence for life itself, without the presence of doubt, worry, or skepticism. Imagine yourself with a little more otter energy. What would life look like? What would it take to bring you there? The otter card begs these questions and wants to transport us to that precious place as soon as possible. The celebration awaits, right? The otter in this deck, in this spirit animal deck, my one card of like relationships and like strong emotional commitments, it almost kind of, whenever I see this card, I immediately think of like the Two of Cups, right? Which is like a brand new romantic connection. And this card really like embodies that energy for me. It's like a really youthful energy. It's very playful energy. Again, it's full of giddiness. It's full of like romance. It's full of emotions. And it feels like the only thing that is stopping this relationship from occurring, is stopping this relationship from evolving, is essentially someone building up the confidence to speak to you, and it feels like you removing your defenses to speak to this person, right? There's a lot of speaking going on, or a lot that needs to be expressed going on, and I find that to be really interesting. And there's a great deal of physical attraction as well when it comes to this connection and when it comes to this relationship. But this could be a very, very beautiful, beautiful, like blissful connection if we like allow that to occur. Let's go for the moth. This is interesting. Okay. The moth, perfect. The moth, impulsive, hasty, and wishful. The moth is sure the grass is greener on the other side. Moth energy is at play when we're attracted to easy solutions or anything shiny and new. Easy solutions or anything shiny and new is very akin to the stingray, right? The stingray talks about developing confidence, a sense of self, like the backbone, right? And essentially making the decision to follow through with things that have been easy and comfortable versus like changing and transforming and following through with things that are a little bit harder and more challenging, right? And so it feels like this moth energy is kind of almost reflecting that and embodying that energy as well. Attracted to easy solutions or anything shiny and new. This can lead to unfinished projects or disappointment or burnout. It's helpful to remind moth personalities that life is complex. No matter the illusion, no one is exempt from the trials and tribulations of this great journey. Practicing life is an infinite mystery rather than wishing it was easier or different. Interesting. And so I really do think that this card is almost like, again, look at how these cards like fit together. I think it's interesting. It almost like in this matchup, it almost feels like the pearl is like emanating light, right? And the moth is kind of attracted to the pearl. So it feels like this is kind of the energy of someone being attracted to you, but it feels like this energy might almost like, it's almost being blocked because you have your guard up. So I really do like this connection. It's really nice. Let me get a drink of water and let's pull some tarot. Okay. Let's go. Tell me about Aquarius. Ooh. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius. For November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius. For November 2020. Tell me about Aquarius. Okay, a couple more shuffles. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Aquarius. Aquarius. Ooh. We just pulled Death in reverse. Tell me about Aquarius. Aquarius. Ooh, wow. And we pulled the Three of Swords. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Okay. Tell me about Aquarius for November of 2020. Aquarius in your current position. Tower in reverse. Wow. In your partner's current position. We have Strength in reverse. Damn, what are you going through? Wow. In your past connection, we have the Seven of Rods in reverse. In your present connection, Aquarius, in your present connection, we have the Knight of Wands. And then in your future connection, Aquarius, in your future connection, we have the Magician in reverse. Wow. Okay, so we pulled lots of major arcana. Let's see here. We have Death in reverse, the Tower in reverse, Strength in reverse, the Magician in reverse. So these were all of the major arcana that was pulled. They were all in reverse. What's interesting here is that we have Death, which is a card of Scorpio. We have the Tower, which is a card of Scorpio and Aries. We have Strength, which is the card of Leo, and we have the Magician, which is the card of Virgo. So you could have any of those placements. Your partner could have any of those placements as well. But something is going on here. It's kind of making me feel a little bit uneasy, I'll be honest. Okay. So let's start. I'm trying to figure out where I want to start. Immediately, I was really interested in these two cards that kind of came up while I was shuffling, right? We have Death in reverse and we have the Three of Swords. Death is the card of life and death. You know, it's the card of endings and beginnings. It's the card of change and transformation, right? We have the skeleton, Death, carrying a flag with a flower on it, representative of life, right? Death into life. When Death is in reverse, it's kind of an indicator that we're not allowing something to die, right? We're not allowing something to end, right? It's almost like putting a stop to something that needs to naturally die. It's kind of like we're essentially interfering with something that we really shouldn't be interfering with. You're interfering with, with life in terms of it's like natural, it's natural process, right? We should be allowing something to die. We should be allowing something to end, but we're not. We're kind of getting in the way and we're not allowing it to happen. We also have the Three of Swords here, right? Which is kind of a card of heartbreak, right? Because it's a sword card, to me, this card speaks more of like mental clarity, mental cognition, like thoughts, like that sort of thing, in terms of like almost being like, yes, there's an emotional component to it because there's a heart on the card, but a lot of it has to do with almost being like heartbroken, but like mentally broken as well. There's like that kind of aspect to it, but there's a little bit of an emotional play too, right? So it feels like, I feel like this probably wanted to come up in the past. So it feels like you or your partner, but I am really getting the impression that it's you, are essentially not allowing a cycle to close. You're not allowing a cycle to end. And it's because there's some sort of heartbreak happening, or there's some sort of like mental break associated with it, right? This could be like a past relationship or something of that nature, but it feels like someone is not allowing a cycle to end due to some sort of emotional heartbreak. Over here, we have the Tower in reverse again, right? The Tower upright really showcases this really strong, stable building, right? And it's getting hit by lightning. It's in a rainstorm. In some decks, we see essentially like waves, right? We see like waves like crashing into the tower. It's on fire. Like everything that could happen to this building is happening to this building. We have people essentially jumping from this tower. And it almost feels like it's crumbling down. It's crumbling down, and it's happening so fast and so unexpectedly, right? And when we have the tower in reverse, to me, you know, these two people are really being highlighted here for me, right? And it kind of almost feels like even this action of like this person, especially over here, and I suppose this person over here, it feels like they're trying to hold something up, or they're trying to catch something, right? They're trying to support something. And so when the Tower card is in reverse, sometimes it can really talk about like, again, something that needs to come down, something that needs to come down unexpectedly, but we're kind of trying to support it. We're trying to kind of hold it up. We're trying to like essentially like not allow something that needs to fall, right? This is something that we've built, right? In our lives, we've all built towers, right? And this is kind of suggesting that a tower that we've built really needs to come down, and we're not allowing it to come down, right? It feels like there's some sort of like, with death in reverse in the tower, again, 2 cards of Scorpio, both in reverse. I really think that you're dealing with a Scorpio, or that you have a Scorpio placement. But this is really talking about essentially, we are not allowing something to end. We are not allowing something to be destroyed, right? Something that we've worked really hard on, we're not allowing it to fall. So I feel like something is going on with you in terms of like a past connection, or something that you've worked very hard on. Essentially, you're refusing to kind of accept it, is what it feels like. Over here, right, we have the Stingray, and we have Strength in reverse. Strength upright really talks about, sorry guys, my camera battery died, but we have Strength right in reverse, right? And we almost see this woman taming a lion in this moment. And essentially this kind of talks about, someone once told me the biggest form of strength is trust. And it took me a while to kind of accept it. It took me a while to kind of understand it. But when we trust someone, or when we trust something, essentially our trust in them is a form of strength, right? We have enough strength and power to trust someone, to put our trust into, right? Which is funny that we're kind of talking about trust when it's open your heart to give and receive the highest energy of all. It is safe for you to love, right? And so it feels like with Strength being in reverse, especially with the Stingray being here too, it's talking about like maybe there isn't enough trust in this current connection yet. There isn't enough strength in this current connection yet, essentially to build up the spine, to build up the backbone, to actually communicate what needs to be communicated, which is really beautiful. And then over here, in your past connection, we have the Seven of Rods in reverse, right? And the Seven of Rods in reverse, this is an interesting card for me. I really feel like this is not about this present connection. Again, this to me feels like two connections. It feels like a newer connection and it feels like an older connection. They feel like two separate relationships. And this card, the Seven of Rods, right, upright, it really indicates like essentially like defensiveness, blocking, guarding, right? This man is on a mountain, right? And there's all of these rods coming up from the bottom of the card indicating that there's people there. And you almost feel like he has this like aggressive nature, this aggressive face, and it feels like he's trying to like block these people from hurting him. And so it's kind of a card of like defensiveness for me. And when it's in reverse, it can kind of indicate a lowering of defenses, or essentially not having the energy to be defensive anymore, right? Which is kind of funny because it feels like you are very defensive right now. So it feels like, Aquarius, it feels like there's kind of this, there was like a moment in the past where you really lowered your defenses, right? Where you really lowered your defenses, and it feels like something might have happened. It feels like there might have been heartbreak when you essentially lowered your defenses. And so now I feel like it was so triggering to you and so powerful of like a moment that essentially it's really caused you to, I just heard like clam up, to clam up. But it's really caused you to essentially put your shell on again. It's like one moment you had a shell on, you took it off for someone or something. There was a lot of like mental burdens, a lot of emotional burdens, a lot of heartbreak, and you're kind of refusing to really let it end. You're refusing to really let it fall. But doing so, you've almost created a whole nother shell. It feels like you essentially, you were like, wow, I should never have taken my shell off. I should never have taken my defenses down to begin with because I got hurt in doing so in the process. But it feels like this connection's a little bit different. It feels like this newer connection is a little bit different than a past connection. And it feels like essentially all it needs is the strength and the confidence, and it needs the ability to communicate how we feel in order for something to actually really blossom here. That would be really positive. That's going to really help you to come out of this like Three of Swords energy. In your present connection, we have the Knight of Wands, right? Someone who's constantly coming, constantly going, very passionate, very fiery, usually working on a whole bunch of projects, or, like following their passions, right? It's someone who sometimes can be incredibly attractive, right? It's funny that we have incredibly attractive here because we also have the Starfish, which really talks about like physical appearances. So I get the impression, Aquarius, that you might be incredibly physically attractive, not just towards this newer person, but perhaps towards people in general as well. And what's weird is this Knight of Wands energy, it could be reminiscent of a Leo, Aries, or a Sagittarius. And we'll keep in mind we also have the Leo energy on the board, and we had the Aries energy on the board before. This Knight of Wands energy is like someone who's very passionate, right? They're a go-getter. And they're constantly traveling, and they're constantly exploring. And it's someone who has a lot of courage. And so whoever this is, it is not this stingray energy. This person does not have confidence or a backbone to approach you. This person does. So whatever that's in your present moment, it could be this past partner kind of coming in and coming out. Sometimes the Knight of Wands upright can really indicate a player. But that could be that energy. But whoever these two people are, these are two separate individuals. They are not the same person. I can tell you that for a fact. And then finally, in your future connection, we have the Magician in reverse, right? Which is the card of Virgo. The Magician will talk about essentially taking all of the materials, taking all of the elements he needs with the Pentacle, the Cup, the Sword, and the Wand, right? And he's essentially using all of those to manifest this beautiful, almost garden, right? Like all of this foliage, all of this like natural beauty around him. It's a manifestation card. He's taking everything around him and he's manifesting his own reality. He's manifesting his own wants, his own needs, right? With this card being in reverse, sometimes it indicates that you cannot manifest, that you have an inability to manifest, right? With gravity kind of, taking all of these elements away from him, with gravity kind of like allowing these flowers to like pass away, right, to die. Essentially, he doesn't have the ability to manifest as he used to. This card can also indicate a little bit of a player energy, right? Well, that's funny that I said player. It's funny that I said player because player usually indicates the Knight of Wands, right? But at the same time, it's not so much a player energy as it is someone who's a little bit manipulative, right? Sometimes the Magician in reverse still does have the energy to manifest and to create, but he's manifesting and creating for the wrong reasons. So either you do not have the ability to kind of manifest what you want to see, or this person could be actually like actively like manipulating you in a very negative sense of the word. It doesn't feel great. There's a lot going on here, Aquarius. Some of the positive things that I really see is this new love, right? A new person has stirred your romantic feelings. It feels like there's a newer connection here. And it feels like you're really concentrated on work and you're really concentrated on your career, really concentrated on school or projects. And it feels like this new person has kind of shook you up a little bit. But the only way for this kind of connection to flourish and for this connection to grow is for this person to develop their self-confidence and for you to come out of your shell, right? Again, it feels very much like an opposites attract kind of energy. And you really need to communicate how you feel. But there's a lot of physical attraction here as well. And it feels like you essentially were in some sort of past connection that was incredibly painful. And it feels like you're not over it. I'll be honest. It feels like you're not over it. It feels like that energy is still very much present. It feels like you haven't accepted it. It feels like you haven't healed from it. And so I feel like that's the next step for you, is to really accept it and to heal it. Because once you do that, then the shell can come off one more time, right? And we can really allow this person in. We can really allow them to communicate, right? But this reading has a very, very beautiful side to it. That's funny too. What's that phrase about clouds always have like a silver lining or something? That's kind of what I'm hearing. Well, looking at this like Three of Swords, right? Is that clouds have a silver lining. And so I feel like this is the silver lining of the cloud. But Aquarius, thank you so much for checking out your November 2020 reading, and I will see you in December. Adios.